What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live and large from Site B on a small island off the coast of Costa Rica. Here on a lovely Thursday morning. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning here. It's the 9th day of March 2023. It's a day that ends in the letter Y, which means we've got Wizards of the Coast news. Right now we have Wizards of the Coast community update, including the introduction of a new department in Wizards of the Coast, the Community Creator Outreach Department. Yes, that's a thing now. Want to thank Tabletop Tap Room for making this information available to me, and Bob the World Builder for going over this. And then, of course, Wizards of the Coast kindly making the news available 2 to 4 days after they actually went about it. Much like the release of the character record sheets on D&D Beyond on Tuesday, these were all things that Wizards of the Coast decided to go live with last week, and for reasons that still make no sense to me, went out of their way to not inform anybody they were doing it. There was no announcement about the character record sheets being released on D&D Beyond for the individuals from the movie. We'll go over those again. And there was no announcement about this. They just kind of snuck it out there on D&D Beyond. I guess if you still have a D&D Beyond subscription and are still paying them for your D&D Beyond prescription, you received an email about this. I had one guy contact me saying, yeah, he did think he got an email about it, but he wasn't sure because, you know, he knew it was from Wizards of the Coast and had something to do with D&D Beyond. But then, yeah. But Bob, the World Builder, got an email from Wizards of the Coast and reaching out to him. And in that Wizards email, there was an announcement about this and a brand new department being created in D&D Beyond / Wizards of the Coast called the Community Content Creator Outreach Program. So let's go over that. So first there's this, how Wizards of the Coast are changing once again the direction they are taking D&D Beyond, Wizards of the Coast, in order to make themselves more accountable for all the problematic choices they have made and how they're going to address the 48-year history of problematic choices that D&D has made to make D&D more inclusive, more accessible and available, more open to the population, as long as that population, you know, is a certain demographic. But yeah, so this is what they had planned, and this is what they're doing. Adding the SRD 5.1 to Creative Commons, because they always had that plan. They were always going to do that since January, since before the whole OGL nonsense, since before the leak, which they still have not addressed or apologized for. Apparently, no, they were always going to do that. Released 4 playtest packets for 1 D&D. Yep, they've done that, even though on the last playtest packet, they said it was the second playtest packet of, even though there's been 4. But as we know, thanks to the new Mrs. Williams and Kyle Brink and the other guy, Wizards of the Coast now openly embraces Scott Steiner math. And they have collected feedback via 3 surveys for playtest content, which they assure us they actually read each and every one. Or at least they have an intern reading each and every one. Or at least they have a computer that is programmed to recognize certain words in each and every playtest, so they get the playtest results that they actually wanted. Because remember, they have extended each and every playtest beyond the day they said they were going to cancel it, at least anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks, until they got in their own words, the numbers that they wanted to see. So they have, they may have read each and every playtest packet or programmed a computer with an algorithm to locate certain words and certain responses, but they also openly admitted on more than one occasion that they were waiting to hear the responses they wanted to hear. But going in progress, they're going to be making the SRD in French, Italian, German, and Spanish, because up to now, the incredibly inclusive company that is Wizards of the Coast hasn't. In fact, the incredibly inclusive company that Wizards of the Coast has received some rather negative outreach from the POC crowd, because the SRDs and the questionnaires have not been in any other language other than good old American English, because nothing says outreach and inclusion and embracing everybody like putting your product only in one language, not even in Braille, just in English. But we are going to make them in the other languages now going forward. We're going to review the previous editions for inclusion in Creative Commons. So, i.e. 3, 4, even though I don't know about 4, because 4 is still on its little island going, I'm still here, guys. But 3, 2, 1, and 0, we're going to address all the problematic content, anything that might trigger somebody for being, racist or whatever. We're going to remove it, run it through the wash, have it come out all nice and peachy clean. So the 3.5, the 3, the 2, the 1, the 0, everything embracing the past 40 some odd years of D&D history can be mushed together and vomited out as an approachable, non-problematic rule set. So, escape from the slave lords will now be run away from the angry waiters at Starbucks. I don't know. I mean, but they're going to make it in tune with the way they think we want 5 to look at. Now, segue. I think we can tell by the amount of 5 product that is coming out over this year alone in the past 3 months, and the direction third-party 5e content looks to be going, that the way Wizards of the Coast wants 5e to go and the way the fans want 5e to go are now completely different, other than that small demographic of the people that they want to answer the questions because they think that's what everybody in the world wants. But I mean, just look at the announcements of 5e stuff that I went over yesterday. It's all dark, it's all grim, it's all horrible, it's all not safe, it's body horror and end of the world and can you survive? Let us embrace that OSR aesthetic, that OGL aesthetic of, dark fantasy and dirty fantasy and diesel punk fantasy and arcane punk fantasy. These are all not words, but yeah. So the direction Wizards of the Coast wants to take D&D into 6th edition is happy, shiny, joyful, everybody the same, all bright color Saturday morning cartoon. Nobody actually gets hurt. But if you look at the industry and the way the industry is going right now, that's not the way people want 5e to go. So to take the previous stuff and then just smush it up and vomit it back out as a clean, clear, brightly colored, acceptable, I don't know if that's going to work. Publish our eternal content policy for D&D products. Yes, if you want to make stuff that we approve of, you got to follow these internal content policies, because remember, we're very concerned about the hateful and inappropriate content and allowing people to use 5e to create hateful and appropriate content. And the fact that people were using the OGL to make hateful and sexually inappropriate and racist and homophobic content was one of the main reasons why Wizards of the Coast attacked the OGL in the first place at the beginning of January, because they felt there was bad people. There was bad hombres out there in the OGL world who were using the OGL to release bad stuff, inappropriate stuff, no pictures of girls' bobas and no pictures of boys doing things. And even though there's no actual proof of that. But okay. And they're going to update the D&D core rules to embrace 6th edition or 1D&D or whatever they're calling it. And Steve's attacking my feet. And ensure 1D&D rules updates are compatible with 5th edition and the SRD. Anybody who's looked at the current 1D&D rules know that they are not. Part of this community outreach was that they sent letters to certain members of the D&D community content creators, one of which was Bob the World Builder. And in these letters, they have invited this small group to join them in Washington for a community content creator gathering where they're going to invite these 5-10 people, many of which are the same people that interviewed Kyle Brink, to this small little gathering over a weekend, which Wizards of the Coast is claiming they're going to pay for, i.e., you know, you're going to have to give them all the receipts, at which point, at some point in time, they will pay you back. Maybe you're going to get a hotel room, and then you're going to get fed. And then over this weekend, they're going to introduce you to the brand new community outreach department and show you all the things Wizards of the Coast has coming down the pike, so that you can go back and tell people how wonderful Wizards of the Coast is. Now, Wizards of the Coast does say in the letter, if you look at Bob Worldbuilder's video, that you don't have to film it if you don't want to. You don't have to say anything about this that you don't want to. Here, take some free stuff. Here, have a free meal. But if you don't want to go back and say good things or bad things about us, we don't want you to. And we're not going to take any pictures of you. We're not going to document this event in any way. It's a completely private event where we're just going to invite you, 10, 12 people, many of whom were the same people that Kyle Brink interviewed with, people who have generally been favorable to Wizards of the Coast since the disaster, small publishers with less than 1 million subs. We're going to invite you to this weekend to look at all the new stuff that we have coming down, to see these changes, these overviews, this development that we're doing as we're taking D&D into 2024, into the 6th edition, into the 50th anniversary. And we're also going to talk about how the fact we're going back to conventions, and we're going to show you what's been done with the VTT. You remember the VTT that Wizards of the Coast is building to go in conjuration with D&D Beyond, so that they can put, Roll20 and Foundry out of business. That VTT we have not heard or seen anything about since August. Well, apparently they're going to show people that, or at least show people the progression on that. They're going to wine and dine these influencers for a day or two at this, the Ramada Inn in Seattle that's within, near the offices. They're going to provide you with a continental breakfast and a dinner buffet. And then you can provide them with the receipts, at which point they will pay you back for the trip. So, yes, if you want to check out the letter, Bob Worldbuilder does the letter. There's a link down below so you can see the letter. Tabletop Tap Room goes over the letter. There's a link to him going over the letter and what he thinks this is going to be. One of the things that popped out, of course, was Wizards of the Coast is going back to conventions. And here's a list of the conventions that they're going back to. Now, let's go over. I'm going to go over this one in a separate one. But apparently one of the things they announced is they're going to be doing community events again, because apparently they have not been doing community events. They have not been going to conventions because, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Jeremy Crawford doing PAX Unplugged and Acquisitions Incorporated at all these conventions for the past couple of years was Wizards of the Coast going to conventions. And I'm pretty sure that, Adventurers League sponsored events and Magic the Gathering sponsored events and board game events that Wizards of the Coast has been doing at conventions is Wizards of the Coast being at conventions and having very specific retailers selling very specific Wizards of the Coast product, including Magic the Gathering product, is also Wizards of the Coast attending at conventions. But apparently Wizards of the Coast hasn't been attending conventions or doing outreach things like, D&D Day or free RPG Day or Adventurers League or Magic the Gathering League or any of those other things. So now they're going to start doing it again. And here's a list of all the things they're going to be doing because we want to be more approachable. We know that we haven't been going to conventions. Yes, you have been going to conventions. Maybe you just haven't had a giant banner and an official booth, but they've been at convention, guys. I don't know why people think they haven't been. Maybe they've just been a little bit more subtle. But Jeremy Crawford at PAX running Acquisitions Incorporated was Wizards of the Coast being present at PAX. So this is it. This is how the latest thing that they're going to do to make us forgive and forget the OGL nonsense of January. Forgive and forget every single solitary thing that they have done. Forgive and forget the direction that they have taken D&D, and how they have turned a very simple game about elves with sticks into a disaster. So this is them offering an olive branch. This is them pulling the levers behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to me. This is them creating a brand new department of socially acceptable individuals who all kind of look the same, called the Community Content Outreach Department, to cherry pick, much like they did with Kyle Brink, cherry pick the YouTubers that they want to continue to deal with, and cherry pick the way the information that we are seeing from Wizards of the Coast is going to be embraced going forward. This is much like when last year, when Chris Perkins said going forward, they're going to have these individuals who are going to be responsible for how we see the content. These sensitivity consultants and these cultural consultants and these individuals, these carbon copied individuals, all young, all vaguely maybe POC, all in bright colors, 90% of whom have purple hair, all of them who look like they're employees at Hot Topic, who really have no idea about the history of the game, but they're going to be the individuals that are going to cherry pick the community content individuals that Wizards of the Coast is going to deal with, like Jeannie D. These young, fresh, approachable, i.e. not me. I didn't get invited to the Wizards of the Coast thing, but I mean, I wouldn't expect I would, even though I know at least one employee, if not more, that works at Wizards of the Coast, but I am definitely not the target audience for Wizards of the Coast right now. So yeah. So that's it. That's what Wizards of the Coast's plan is from now to the end of 2024. Will this change? It's Wizards of the Coast, so of course this will. Can we take anything serious that they're saying here? No, we can't, because it's Wizards of the Coast. Is this a good thing? On paper, yes. On paper, it's a good thing. But like with everything Wizards of the Coast does, between what the idea and the actual product will be completely different. So having, in a roundabout way, taking my advice from a year ago, hiring an individual whose job it is to make sure you do not keep saying the same stupid things you've been saying for the past 8 years, hiring a publicity consultant, hiring a media consultant, hiring a public relations attorney. Good idea. Something you should have done years ago, Wizards of the Coast, because your public relations usually end up in disasters. Good idea. Creating a community content outreach department? Bad idea. Apologizing and explaining in clear, concise, easy to understand information why the OGL disaster of 2023 happened, why you said the things you said, why you allowed Kyle Brink to say there's no room for people like me in D&D anymore. Address getting ahead of the public relations disaster that was 2023 January. Good idea. Inviting a small select group of YouTubers to a small select easily controlled location where you will be able to have 100% access to everything they see, do, and experience, and then you will subtly convince them to say good things about you, presenting a clean, well-developed, approachable series of things while whining and dining them and giving them grab bags of free stuff, telling them, oh, send us all the receipts. We'll pay for your flight, Bob World Builder, because we know you have to fly all the way across the country. We'll pay for your room. You're going to get a continental breakfast every morning, a lunch and dinner buffet, but it's on our dime at this hotel, which is, of course, giving us amazingly discounts because it's a tax write-off for them and it's a tax write-off for us. And the city government encourages hotels to have conventions because it spurs business in that area. So having a weekend-long community outreach will encourage business owners in the area to open their doors to the people that are coming, which will allow money to be funded through the hotel and through the stores that are adjacent to the hostel, which is good for the community. And Wizards of the Coast will receive kickbacks for sponsoring this. And thank you again, Wizards of the Coast, for going out to the conventions and addressing the fact that you haven't been, even though you have. So what do we think about this? Good thing, bad thing? Does it matter? Is this going to change anyways? Is this going to make anybody who has given up on Wizards of the Coast go running back to Wizards of the Coast? Is this going to garner Wizards of the Coast any new goodwill from all the people that they have ostracized? Or is this just going to be more of the same? More approachable, young people in bright clothing with pink hair who may be vaguely person of color, who are going to be inclusive and address diversity and talk about the problematic history of Wizards of the Coast and how going forward we're not going to do that. And everything that happened in January was for your protection. We were looking out for you guys. We're trying to protect you from the bad content that is D&D, and we're trying to address our history of problematic content. This is us getting ahead of the public relations disaster that this year has been so far, as well as last year and the year before. And don't worry, OGL, OSR people, because we're going to also do the old stuff. So all those stuff, that you've made for the past 40 years using 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, I'm not sure about 4, but 1, 2, 3, and 3.5. Yeah, don't worry. We're going to take a look at all that and make sure that it fits the new SRD. The SRD that, by the way, is not the right SRD that they should have used, but the SRD they did use. And don't worry, it's all going to be compatible with 5. It's all going to be compatible with 1. It's all going to be compatible and safe and up to date. Even though we said that we were never going to do anything that existed before 2014, we were never going to touch that stuff. We were never going to touch Ravenloft. We were never going to touch Dark Sun. We were never going to touch Planescape. We were never going to touch all these things. Well, now we're looking at them and we're going, hey, Dark Sun. Hey, Slave Lords. Hey, Isle of Dread. Hey, Dro. Hey, Mind Flayers and Beholders. How can we bring you to the future? Bring you to the D&D of today and make it so you express the current Wizards of the Coast thought pattern of what we think the future players of our game want. Even as we speak, the world is responding, telling us, no, this is not what we want. We haven't wanted this for a while. What you're doing with 5e is not what we want. But Wizards of the Coast is, of course, going, no, don't worry. We're going to have this convention where these 12 people are going to be fed a certain story so that they can go back and tell you that story, even though we're telling them they don't have to if they don't want to. But of course, while we're telling them that, we're also handing them prizes and free stuff. But no, Bob. No, Steve. No, Jeannie. If you don't want to talk about what you saw at this convention, you don't have to. And we're not going to record it in any way, shape, or form. Yes, they are. Let me know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, because that's the Wizards of the Coast latest news, latest nonsense. This was given to me. I found out about this through Tabletop Tap Room. Give him a link down below. If you haven't subscribed to Tabletop Tap Room yet, head out over. The guy's only got like 500 subs. Help him reach 1,000 subs. This guy has mentioned me in several of his videos. So give him a like, give him a share, give him a sub if you haven't yet. His stuff is really good. It's often better than mine. Yeah. And then, of course, Bob the World Builder. If you haven't been over to his site yet, check out the link down below. Head on over to Bob World Builder because he goes over the letter in question and what his expectations are. You can read the outreach on D&D Beyond. I've posted a link down below if you want to go over what it is Wizards of the Coast says they're going to do, have done. I don't know, Wizards of the Coast, just tossing it out there. How about an apology to all the people who have not been able to take your surveys or read the product because you haven't been doing it in any other language other than English? Where's the Braille surveys? Where's the Spanish survey? Where's the German survey? Huh? I don't know. That might be inclusion. That might be a good investment of the energy as opposed to what you are doing. If any of this interests you, the links are down below. And speaking of links down below, here we go. If you haven't had a chance to like, share, and subscribe to the OGGM Adventures, please take a moment to subscribe to the OGGM Adventures. It costs you nothing and it helps me immensely. Help me reach 1,500 subs by April 1st. And remember, this is my job, so if you're feeling generous, you could support the OGGM Adventures. I've got a Patreon, I've got the PayPal, I've got the Ko-Fi, but really, honestly, the best way you can support the OGGM Adventures is to head on over to Big Geek Emporium using the link down below and buy one or more of my amazing, if I say so myself, 5-star reviewed Minions on a Mission Monster Zines, 8 issues of brand new monsters for the OSR OGL, 8 new issues of new ways to look at monsters, ideas about how to address monsters, plus King Slime and my usual sense of wacky sense of humor. So yeah, head on over. Okay, we've got some points. We've got some posts. ESG Day. Ernie Senior Gygax. Hi, Cat Monroe Superhero. What WOTC up to now? They are doing something today that they should have done 2 months ago. Community Content and Morality Board. Oh, yes, that goes without saying. But as Chris Perkins told us a year ago, they were going to do that. This is what's known as plausible deniability. Now that they have this in place and they've officially said this exists, when the inevitable backlash for Keys to the Golden Vault hits them, when the inevitable backlash for the movie hits them, when the inevitable backlash for the next playtest hits them, when the inevitable backlash for whatever the next product after Keys to the Golden Vault hits them, they will be able to say, plausible deniabilities, we have a community content outreach department. We have sensitivity consultants. If you were outraged by something in Keys to the Golden Vault, that's not on us. That must have been something they missed. And they're doing exactly what you wanted them to do. So if you're upset with our community content, well, we gave you what you wanted. So really, is that on us or is that on you? Because we gave you this department whose whole job is to consult sensitivity and reach out to the community. So if that one picture in that one book is offensive to you, well, they probably just missed that, and we'll talk to them about it. But really, we put that picture in the book because you wanted it. I'm thinking they invited everyone they did interviews with. Bob, Ted, Jeannie. Yes, they have invited everybody they did interviews with. I don't know who else they've invited. It's a small group, but pretty much everybody that interviewed Kyle Brink is being invited to this thing. So that's it. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please support the OGGM Adventures by head on over to Big Geek Emporium. I will be back with more Wizards of the Coast nonsense because it's a day that starts with the letter, ends with the letter Y, and we can't have a day in the week without Wizards of the Coast finding a brand new way to make us just scratch our heads in frustration. I will talk to y'all later. Stay safe and get off my land.